The Indian Army is one of the world's largest land forces. It's also one of India's finest and most respected institutions. Stories of their bravery and devotion to duty continue to inspire us. But today we have another inspirational story. The story of a serving army officer who's designed and developed a 9mm submachine gun. In fact, he's designed India's first such weapon since independence. And today he's right here with us in the News9 Plus studio. It's an absolute honor to welcome you to the studio of News9 Plus, Colonel Prasad Bansod. Welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you, Sandeep.
I want to start straight out by asking you, army officers, army soldiers are primarily users of weapons. They're not bothered about who designs it, how they design it. What drove you, a serving army officer, to design a submachine gun? Tell us this fascinating story.
Well, Sandeep, as you see, Indian Armed Forces are one of the most richest operationally in the world. They are rated as one of the finest troops in the world. The total strength of our armed forces today is approximately 15.5 lakhs, and add on to it a CAPF strength of almost 9 lakhs. All individuals in these organizations, when I say all, I mean all individuals, are authorized a personal weapon.
Right.
What we call in armed forces as Zati Hathiyar.
Right.
If you look at the sheer statistics, the sheer number of these outmatch any other military hardware in the world.
Right.
A huge percentage of this population is roughly based on weapons that fire the 9x19mm ammunition.
Right.
It can be pistols or SMG category of these weapons. And these weapons roughly account to about 20 to 25% of any small arms inventory across the uniforms and across the countries. There are certain individuals in the armed forces who require a weapon between a pistol and a carbine to carry out their task optimally. These are generally weapons that are based on the 9x19mm round. They fire from high capacity magazines, they have reflex sight attached to them, and hence we see an emergence of a class of weapon called the machine pistols.
Right.
Of late, the Indian Army and other institutions and organizations of late procured some machine pistols ex-import. And hence it was a natural call to develop an indigenous machine pistol.
Right.
The machine pistols are generally based on the 9x19mm round. They have a full-length Picatinny rail on which you have reflex sights. They come from high-capacity magazines, are very controllable and are capable of firing short, accurate bursts. Of late, the Indian Army had procured certain of these ex-import.
Right.
Also, the German HK MP5, a world-famous weapon, has been in service in the armed forces, as also in the CAPFs in quite a sizable,
Right, and the special forces.
And the special forces as well.
Right.
So it was a natural call to develop an indigenous machine pistol.
Right.
And applicability of this 9mm is pan uniforms, pan country. In 2017, I was posted to an organization called the Infantry Trials and Development Unit,
Right.
a premier institution that's part of the ITDU.
Right.
From there, I was handpicked to be part of certain evaluation and procurement committees in 2018 and 19.
Right.
When I went on these committees, I realized that now we are buying these at an exorbitant price.
Right.
When there is a 25% of the population's requirement and we don't have an indigenous weapon.
Yes.
9mm Browning is a Belgian design.
Right.
SMC was a World War II British design.
Right.
We don't have an indigenous source for 25% of the population. So the thought behind my mind was, till when we will keep importing this? Blowback systems have been around since the Second World War.
Yes.
The thing that I thought is, why not attempt to develop one?
Right. Right.
What's there to lose?
Your weapon has now finally been ordered by the Indian Army. And that's a historic step, because what the Indian Army orders is watched not just closely by the other paramilitary forces, but by the rest of the world as well. Tell us how important that first order has been for you, how it's boosted your confidence, and the kind of improvements we will see in this submachine gun in the years ahead.
Sandeep, you asked me a question related to how the design will align with our national motto of Atmanirbhar.
Yes.
Let me divide my answer into two phases.
Right.
Firstly, we have been able to design this machine pistol as a joint user designer team along with the ARD, the DRDO.
Right.
Firstly, I will tell you what this brings to the table. This particular product, the machine pistol Asmi per se. Firstly, we have been able to develop an indigenous weapon that forms 25% of our population.
Right.
We have been able to do hand holding of one DPSU, that's SAF,
Right.
and one private industry location machines.
Right.
And take them to a stage where they can commercially produce this weapon. Now we have developed an IDDM weapon. Now let me briefly explain this. IDDM is indigenously designed, developed, manufactured, and into brackets design control.
Right.
That is we as Indians have the IP over it, and will also be the AHSP certain point down the lane. We have been able to develop certain technologies that have cross-domain applications along the way. I
Yes.
will not dwell upon them more.
Right.
And they will be available to the Indian defense industry in due course of time.
Right.
This is the first small arms order
Yes.
wherein within 36 months of the project starting, we have been able to secure firm Ministry of Defence and Ministry of Home Affairs orders
Right.
through a competitive bidding process.
Right.
Not to mention, we are the cheapest also as
Yes.
we got the tender. Now, this has boosted the level of confidence of our teams.
Right.
Now, the question is, if we can deliver one project Asmi,
Yes.
can't we deliver more?
Absolutely.
This is as per the project machine pistol Asmi was concerned.
Right.
Now, let's zoom out and let's see what this user designer concept brings to the table.
Right.
Okay? It brings 4 important things to the table. Reduction in R&D time.
Yes.
I'll just briefly tell you the time frame.
Right.
53 working days first prototype firing.
Yes.
30 months firm MHA MOD orders in hand.
Right.
4 months the initial design stage complete.
Yes.
We design of an indigenous weapon which meets the user aspiration, as also the designers are happy with it, as also the manufacturers.
Right.
Greater ownership of by the product, by the users themselves, and hence a greater level of satisfaction. And lastly, boost to the indigenous industry for developing a weapon.
Right.
That only not only meets our aspiration, but is an ideal candidate for exports as well.
Right. And which brings me to my next question, that it's very significant. What you just mentioned is a public-private partnership between the Indian Army, the DRDO, the private sector and the public sector, the erstwhile ordnance factory
factories,
boards.
yes.
It's a combination of all of these. It's like an all of government and all of country approach to produce this weapon. What improvements can we see in this in the years ahead?
Sandeep, again, I'll dwell upon 2 important aspects of this development. That is the ease at which you can do product improvement, and
Right.
second is the technical improvement.
Right.
You see, this is what I can describe as IDDM, as I told you, indigenously designed, developed, manufactured with design control.
Yes.
We, and when I say the word we, it means the Indian Army and DRDO, we are the joint IP holders,
Yes.
and sometime down the line we'll be the HSPs also.
Right.
Any product changes or improvement, we can do it without referring to any JV partner or a foreign company.
Right.
Also, this gives us an opportunity to export the weapon. However, if you are manufacturing a weapon of foreign origin within India, this
Yes.
might be difficult.
Right. Right.
Since the design is under indigenous control and this is the first model of the Asmi, the future models I think will feature variable barrel lengths.
Right.
It will feature a shorter, compactor receiver. See, the heart of the weapon as you fired in the morning is the upper receiver.
Yes.
We have designed the upper receiver in a modular way.
Right.
The upper receiver houses the barrel, it houses the extractor, it houses the housing, it houses
Yes.
the sights and the pin, the captive pin. Like if I may draw a comparison with an aircraft, see, the airframe continues to remain in service, however the engine, avionics and the
Absolutely.
controls keep getting
All the
upgraded.
internal parts keep getting upgraded.
So we have
and
designed a
yes.
system in such a way that you can upgrade it with time.
So it's a
it
modular
lends itself
system.
to be upgraded.
Yes.
Yes. It's a modular
Fantastic.
system and hence it's a very, very economic system.
I must ask you this, Colonel Bansod. Why did you name this weapon Asmi, and what does Asmi mean?
See, Sandeep, there is a Sanskrit word called asmita,
Right.
right, which means pride, self-respect and hard work. It also means a group of people or a group has a conscious that it is different from the entire universe.
Right.
Right? Now this word asmita depicts our Rashtriya Asmita
Right.
or national pride,
National pride.
and it truly reflects the pride, hard work that we have built into it to make it a world-class system.
Right, absolutely. And what an appropriate name for this weapon, Asmita and pride, national pride, coming at a time when India has finally embarked on the path of shunning imports, especially for small arms, and becoming Atmanirbhar. And this Asmi, as you've so beautifully put it, is part of that grand plan to indigenize India's defense hardware. But before I go, Colonel Bansod, the Indian Army a few years back set up the Army Design Bureau precisely for this reason, to align itself with the government's thinking on indigenization and defense hardware to make our own weapons. What would be your advice for many others out there who want to be weapon designers? How would you inspire them?
Well, Sandeep, firstly, let me take this opportunity to thank both the organizations, that's the Indian Army and DRDO both. Certain names that have worked silently behind it should be known today. I'll start from the Army side first. Colonel Ananjay, now Brigadier Ananjay, the then Colonel Trials, Brigadier Parimal Pant, the then Commandant Infantry School, Lieutenant General Anant Narayan and Sena Medal, the present EDG ADB, General Maan, the previous ADB, General Kirti Vijay Johar, and of course the Army Commander, General Raj Shukla. I vividly remember that night in August 20, when at about 11:30 at night the phone rang and the operator said, Army Commander Saab baat karna chahte hain.
Right. This is how many years back was this?
This is 2020. This is August 2020.
Right.
And he asked me two crisp questions. Prasad, how much time you require to develop a weapon, and what are the finances or funds that you would be requiring to develop it? And in no uncertain terms, he told me, but the Army Day 2021, this weapon must be in hand of the chief.
Right.
Now, this is unparalleled in small arms developmental history, that even before the metal cutting has started, the date of unveiling has been transferred. Okay. And as you know, we are from the armed forces, we never late. In the same breath, let me also thank the hierarchy of the DRDO, my present lab director, the earlier one, without whose blessings the things were not possible, my group director, Mr. Colonel Prasad, our small but effective bunch of people called the PMU, Prototype Manufacturing Units, those who made the first receiver in-house, complete weapon in-house. I would also like to mention about a person whose contributions till now have not, whose name has not come. His name is Mr. Bhupinder Singh, Scientist F.
Right.
He is my immediate senior in ARD. Right. And he and me have jointly developed this weapon. Yes. In fact, he is the one who's helped me transform my concept into a functional weapon. Right. So I think it's very, very important that his contribution gets a due recognition here.
Absolutely. But how would you inspire other youngsters like you who want to be weapon designers?
I would just tell them that we live in a world wherein recently we've seen the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, even the Russia-Ukraine conflict, the Israel-Hamas war. Right. There are certain glaring lessons out of this conflict, and one of the most important one is not to be import dependent on your military hardware. Right. Take example of Asmi. The army wanted to develop it, the DRDO wanted to develop it. We joined hands, we synergized together. In 53 days, we have a perfectly working weapon. The Army Design Bureau on its own side has been set up to fasten up the pace of indigenization, and funding and technology support as well as incubation should be the last thing that should be on anybody's mind, with so many incentives being developed by the government of India now. And it's not only the government, even the Indian Army. As you know that I am the first officer who's been promoted under the new promotional policy of domain specialization. It's not only officers. I will also quote an example of Havaldar Virinder Singh from the Sikh regiment. He's an NCU who's developed a multi-purpose quadcopter. His efforts have been recognized, his projects have been taken ahead, and he has been awarded a VSM. And here I would also like to mention you that not all military solutions come from high-tech labs. Some of them come from the humble barracks.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks very much, Colonel Bansod. We're completely out of time here, but we wish the Asmi plenty of orders, and we hope for it to become an import killer, as you call it, a source of national pride for Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Thank you, Sandeep.
You can catch Colonel Bansod on a new episode of Guns of India Season 2, dropping soon only on the News9 Plus app.
Streaming on News9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.